What's up YouTube? Welcome to my channel Astro Sean, and in this video I'm going to be talking about something known as the rule of threes in astrology. But before I get started, I just want to say if you are new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe. Here on this channel I give astrology advice, metaphysical advice, and numerology advice, and I always share a lot of my own personal experiences, and I am very direct and straight to the point. Um, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you for being a subscriber. And leave a thumbs up and comment down below comment down below as always any of your experiences with anything that I may be talking about, anything astrology related, because I love to hear everybody's feedback. But this is a very simple technique or concept in astrology, and the gist of it is basically that um, if a natal chart is going to say something to you, it's going to say it a million times. But what you want to do is you want to see something expressed three different ways in the natal chart before you reach a certain conclusion. And why is this? Whenever you look at a natal chart, you see, it's a wheel and there's a lot going on. You have all these lines, these blue lines, these red lines, all these planets, and there's so much potential and so many different indicators for something that it can be hard to zero in and narrow down the exact energies or topics that are potent in a person's life. So in order to do that, again, you want to see it expressed three different ways. So if you see something one time, it's probable, it's possible. If you see it two times, it's likely, and if you see it three times, it is very likely to occur or manifest. So I do have some examples here. I do have some notes, but this is very important, especially when it comes to like more serious topics like children or fertility, and money, and things like that, because no one aspect is going to dominate a chart and have total say on what goes on. But if you see it come up a few different ways, then that kind of is letting you know that that energy or that particular topic is something that this chart is clearly trying to communicate to you. So this is very useful whenever I do what do you call it, blind chart readings for people. Like if it's somebody that I don't know and I'm trying to zero in on the main things that take place in their life, I'll go ahead and I'll use this approach. But the first example I have is, I actually took it way back to Franklin D. Roosevelt, which is America's 32nd president. And the reason I did this is because his life is very interesting. He became the president and he was diagnosed with, I think they said it was polio, but the gist of it was a paralytic disorder which caused permanent damage to his lower legs, so his legs became paralyzed permanently. And so when I pulled up his chart, I saw that he was a Virgo rising. So that's indicator number one, that health will be a major theme in a person in his life. So if I didn't know him and he came to me and I looked at his chart and I saw Virgo was rising, I would automatically know that health will be a major topic, for better or for worse. So I see that he has Virgo rising, but that's not the kicker is that Uranus, which is a planet that rules the lower legs, but it also represents spasms and being paralyzed as well, and it also represents things that are sudden. Uranus is conjunct his ascendant, and the ascendant again is your physical body, and so and it's retrograde. So I will know then that there's something peculiar, something strange, if you will, that is going on with his physical body. But I would need to see something else to confirm that. So then I will look at the house of health, which will be the sixth house. And he has, lo and behold, a stellium in the sixth house. Now he's in Aquarius, and he has his sun, Mercury, and Venus all in Aquarius in the sixth house. Now Uranus is one of the planets that rule Aquarius. So when you see this going on, I'm like, this is reinforcing that Aquarian energy, because Aquarius also rules the lower legs. It also rules spasms and disorders, and it also rules things that are sudden, and it can also be an indicator of, in the worst case scenarios, something that is paralyzed. So um, but that is more so the Saturn side, because Saturn is also ruling this house. So that would be indicator number two. I would know, okay, there's something definitely, like if he came to me for a reading, I would say, oh yeah, I know that there's something up with his health, something up with his um, physical body, his ability to move around, something very, important. And so the third indicator would be um, his sun in the sixth house is forming a square to Saturn. And the sun is representing his will, and Saturn is representing restriction and limitations, and a square is a blockage. So when you put it together, you could say that his will, his will is being restricted or limited due to a health condition. But his sun is also applying towards a square with Neptune as well. And so Neptune is a planet that can deal with, weaknesses or loss or a dissolving of something. So Neptune is coming in, it is weakening his sun, and then his sun is also scoring Jupiter. All of these planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, are in Taurus in his ninth house, the house of movement and freedom, but also the house of politics. So it's interesting that this energy was activated once he became president, because I could be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this developed shortly after he became president or while he was running for president. But either way, it was active. It wasn't something that he had all his life. It was something that came suddenly, which is the Aquarius, once he ran for office. And the ninth house is the house of politics, and Jupiter is the planet of freedom. So that his sun scoring Jupiter would be representing his freedom being restricted in some way. Um, so all those three indicators right there: Virgo rising with Uranus conjunct the ascendant retrograde, a sixth house stellium in Aquarius, with important planets there such as the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. It's also important that I mention Mercury, because Mercury is his chart ruler. And so when you're talking about the rule of threes, you want to make sure that the planets involved are major planets, like the chart ruler, the Sun, the Moon, because those are the ones that is going to have a very direct effect on a person's life, their health. And again, his chart ruler being in the sixth house, and with his sixth house receiving all those squares and stuff like that, that there's something debilitating concerning his health. Okay. But he has a lot of other positive aspects that I'm not going to get into in this video. But that does show what he did have the mental fortitude to continue to be president. He didn't give up and just, say die and give up. But, and then I also want to mention that, the condition was permanent, and fixed signs lead to permanency. So that Sun in Aquarius, that Mercury in Aquarius, that Venus in Aquarius, the Saturn in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, Neptune in Taurus. That's a lot of fixed energy. And again, fixed signs can also be, in his case, be contributing to him being paralyzed as well, because fixed signs, they anchor things down, they stop things, and they lead to permanence. They're very powerful signs. And then, so the next example I have is actually one of my favorite musicians, Sting. So Sting is a musician, and he is a Leo rising. And Leo was a sign of fame, of entertainment, of being on stage. So if he came to me and I didn't know who he was, and I was blind reading his chart, I would say, maybe his life has something to do with children. Maybe it has something to do with fame, sales, marketing. Because all of these things are represented by Leo. So I was going to look at his sun, because the sun is the planet that is depositing Leo, will be his chart ruler. His sun is in Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of music, the planet of harmony, the planet of dance. And so I would then say, okay, well, this is going to be more so geared towards stage and performance and music, because of the Libra influence. And then I would go and I would look at his fifth house. So Leo rising is the first indicator. Chart ruler of his sun, being in Libra as the second indicator. And then the third indicator of him being a famous musician would be the fact that the ruler of his fifth house is Jupiter. So he has Sagittarius on the fifth house cusp, and his Jupiter is the highest or the most elevated planet in his chart. And so the most elevated planet, or the concept of the highest elevated planet, is basically the planet that is closest to the midheaven, and that can be an indicator for fame, especially when it is associated with the fifth house. So those three things let me know that this is somebody who, if I didn't know him, I would say music, being on stage and performing is a major theme in your life because of all of these indicators. And just for a bonus, I looked at his part of fortune, and his part of fortune is in Cancer. And if you go, if you count 10 places from his part of fortune, it takes you right to that Jupiter that is close to that midheaven. And if 10 places from your part of fortune leads you to your midheaven, or a planet close to that midheaven, that can be an indicator for fame as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all know who Sting is. I don't know, but check him out. He's a really great musician. I'm a Leo rising as well, so maybe that's the whole connection thing. Um, and then lastly, I have the Olsen Twins. So I wanted to look and see how to look at somebody's chart and know that a sibling could be a major um, impact in their life. So number one, they're Geminis, and Gemini is the sign of siblings, is the sign of twins, so it's quite literal for them. Um, but the sun is also their chart ruler because they are also Leo risings, so that can show where they have a strong identification. Well, you will have a strong identification with your sibling. So if you're a Leo rising and your son is a Gemini, that's going to show where, at the very least, you share a strong resemblance to your siblings. And I actually talked about it in one of the videos that I uploaded prior to this one. Maybe it's going to be afterwards, I don't know yet. But I talked about that. So check out that video as well. And then I looked at the third house, because the third house is the house of relatives and siblings. And the ruler of the third house is in the first house. So they have Libra on the third house cusp, and they have Venus at the 27th degree of Cancer. So it's right at the end of the 12th house, but it's affecting the first house. So that can again show a strong identification with a sibling, and at the very least, a strong resemblance to a sibling. And then lastly, we have South Node in the third house. So the South Node is a very important mathematical point that can point to a lot of lessons in karma that you brought over in this lifetime, and things that you need to learn and move away from, or not move away from necessarily, but it can show where you need to use this in order to pursue your North Node. And so anybody with South Node in the third house is going to have some strong karmic ties to their relatives, to their siblings. So when you put it all together, I will be able to tell this person, if they sat down in front of me, siblings, a relative, whatever, will play a major role in your life. So that is one of the keys to practicing meaningful astrology, is to be able to see something and see it expressed multiple ways. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so again, definitely try this concept out on your own birth chart, and this can also help to answer a lot of questions you may have about your birth chart. And if you need some assistance and you need somebody to come and help, clarify things and put things into perspective for you, consider ordering a birth chart reading for me. And you can shoot me an email at the letter Y, Rashawn, RASHAWN 37 @gmail.com, and just put astrology, horoscope, reading, natal chart, whatever in the subject matter, and I'll respond to you. And lastly, I just want to say that this is also applicable towards other things, not just your natal chart. So this could absolutely work for transits. If you have transits going on, and if you have 3 different transits that are kind of pointing to the same area of life, then you know something is going to go down in that area of life. But we'll just keep it short and sweet for this video, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I hope you found it insightful, and until then, next time.